Sorry about that. Camera cut out because the storage was full. Anyway, better keep this short. The decisions that you had to make could be made. There weren't that many of them. I mean, you got five zeal points. So, in simple terms, you can probably do five things. And some of them are very, very simple. Like you might decide to um, what is it, reinforce or fortify a city. So let's say you might turn that one click. That would cost you a zeal point. That's 1 point spent. You're not even rolling the die there. Or you might roll the die and try and move one of these markers. So the thing is, your turn to execute your turn might take sort of 2 minutes. Um, and I think I do have a little bit of a problem with that. If that means that if there's a game in which you're doing a lot of the time, or the vast majority of the time that you're spending is the operation of the AI, and then when it comes to your turn, it's nice, it's refreshingly different to have such simple choices to make, but if it then starts to occurring to you, wait a minute, how much am I actually involved in this process? So I know other people have written that about this game. I've only played it once, but at the moment it does seem a bit light on the choices that I have in front of me, and I suppose that each choice is quite complex, but unlike say the other two games that I mentioned, there are so many different places that you could um, assert your will, as it were. So I suppose here, I mean, it's like I could campaign, as it were, against four different armies. I could do something involving one, two, three, four, five, six different cities. So that's 10. I mean, in literal terms, that's about it, it seems to me. And then there are six tracks here. So there are 16 things that I could involve myself there. So basically, if you see what I mean, it's almost like, playing a game where you have 16 units, which I play De Bellis Antiquitatis, for example, a miniatures game where you have 12 units. But that's a big difference there between something like that and something like D-Day at Peleliu or Normandy 44. Of course, there's a big difference. But so this is, light. But I'm not sure if it's too light on the agency, as people like to say to these days, the agency from the player, your actual ability to influence what's happening. So again, I think that I don't know. It might be finally a game, because it's nice and simple. It might be a game that it's awfully tempting to think about bolting some house rules on. One of the rules, which would be very simple to implement, it would change the game balance, obviously, but would be to simply give you more zeal points. Just imagine if instead of having five every turn, you had six. It's a very simple way to adjust it. Just say, London is worth 4, not 3. Something like that. Completely artificial. I'm not sure what the game designer would say. But also, I would also like to do something about the battlefields as well, about the battles, because I did find that when I was playing it, I was almost hoping that no battles would come up, because it was just sort of go through the motions. Oh, it's a draw. That happened. I mean, that did happen 3 times. And you do lose a zeal point, okay, but it was just sort of do this, set it all up, roll the dice, oh, and it's a draw. So I would like something to get us out of that particular doldrum. Right, that's enough for now. Hello, gamers. Today is October 10th, 2023, and I have just completed my second game ever of Cruel Necessity, the English Civil Wars, and by Victory Point Games. And this is the first edition, not the more recent deluxe edition. And the result of the game was, went through the entire deck. The game didn't stop for any other reason, such as London falling, Didn't stop, unlike my first game, stopped where there were 4 markers that were in the F zone. So here's the F zone, which this is Scotland, Parliament, Puritanism, and then there's the F zone for Ireland, monarchy, Catholicism. So we can see in the F zone, we've got Ireland and Catholicism. Monarchy was doing quite well, relatively, up in the upper C zone up there. And Parliament and Puritanism were doing quite well. They being in those positions enabled me to have the right to be able to purchase some achievements, which I managed to bag 2, and a lot more were needed. As far as the strategic position on the map board goes, it is absolutely dreadful. Basically, Parliament has pretty well lost, has lost everything except London. It could only be slightly worse. London is not actually under siege at this moment, but as we can see from the Army of the West there in Oxford, and also the Army of the North in Nottingham, either one of those, if they had another turn to activate, could have ended up in here, and they could have placed London under siege. The last hurrah, the last thing, not really a hurrah, but the last thing the Parliament decided to do, just to sort of make it look interesting on the board, it was of no purpose, they couldn't achieve any other victory points, was to fix up London a bit. So it's actually on a setting of 4. It's heavily fortified. So if it were attacked, no one can say, well, if they were able to attack it on the next turn, they'd overthrow London. But they wouldn't, or at least one of them wouldn't be able to do that by itself. So anyway, as we can see, the island marker is as far forward as it can go. The Scotland Army marker is as far forward as it can go. Got an uprising here that's unresolved. We've got a clubmen here that's unresolved. I mean, come on, it just goes on and on. The Irish troubles are active, as we can see from this. But I did make more progress because, of course, in the first game, after 14 cards had been played, 27 cards have been played over here, but in the first game I only managed to get 14 cards played over here before I had 4 political markers in the F zone, and that marks the end of the war. Now, there was one thing I did differently. I decided to employ a house rule. This was only the second time I had played the game, and as you, I don't know if you've seen my earlier movie, but in the first game, one of the conclusions I had from that was sadly that the whole tactical battle business, which comes up on a card if you have an event card turn up, like this one here, which has the red infantryman on it, then it means you're going to do, before anything else, you're going to do a tactical battle. And in the battle, you do various things, but one of the things that you do is you grab unseen, you grab 2 Royalist cavalry units, you put one there, you put one there, and you grab 4 Royalist infantry units, and you put them 1, 2, 3, 4 face down, and then eventually you'll reveal them. And you do the same thing over here. You grab unknown, well, if you've got named ones, you can use them, but otherwise you're grabbing unknown units, 1 here, 4 infantry, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you flip them all over. Okay, and of course, in so doing, you might end up with some very imbalanced flanks or wings or centers or whatever. You could, for example, I mean, I don't know what the exact numbers are, but you could have something like, you could have 2 6s there facing 2 1s. Oh, how unfortunate. Or you might have, 2 3s there facing 2 3s. Oh, it's very even. Right. So there were 2 things that tended to happen. The battles were, in the first game I played, I think there were 5 battles. There were 4 draws and 1 loss. So the problem is, if it's a draw, although you do lose a zeal point, so it matters, but the thing is, it feels a lot like, oh, it's a battle. Let's set it all up. Oh, it was a draw. So and it takes time. It takes time to do to go through all this stuff, and frankly, it felt like a bit of a waste of time. So, and also there was very little player agency involved, almost none. So I didn't like that. So I just made a very small adjustment, which was to say that the royalist forces are revealed. Then you reveal the parliamentarian forces. And once you've done that, you can reposition them any way you like. So infantry can be repositioned anywhere within the infantry line, and cavalry can swap positions if they want to. Okay. So at least you've got some sort of player agency involved. At least you've got some sort of tactical decision happening. Okay. Now, at the beginning, when the parliamentary armies were not, it seems to me, not as good as the royalists. The forces that are available are just not as good. And you need it once the named units start showing up. That's great. And then also there are these three sort of, I would call them sort of battle cards, tactical cards, as it were, that can be retained and can be played when you have a battle, and they just give you advantages. Okay, so things did slowly get better. As things went on, as the names unit showed up, and as one got these cards. And then there was also one of these achievements. Just one moment. The self-denying ordinance, which calls for the permanent removal of both one-strength parliamentary musket and pike units from play. Those two, they're both ones. So they were removed from that. But as you can see, there are lots of units there. There's that lot there. So, yes, of course, that has an effect. It doesn't have a huge effect, but it has an effect, right? Anyway, so incrementally, things got better for Parliament. And, of course, then with the added ability of the parliamentary commander to be able to rearrange his battle line before battle commenced, what it meant was, of course, was that the parliamentary commander could decide, okay, I'm really going to try and outclass the enemy in this particular sector so that I can hedge my bets, so that I can really go all out and try and get some victories here. Okay, and it worked quite well. So, of course, it changes the play balance in favour of Parliament from the way the game is designed. But I wouldn't for a moment think of going back to the original system. Having experienced this now with this, just the ability to rearrange to rearrange the pieces. Notice I did not say that you could rearrange the royalist pieces as well. I didn't say that. They show up where they show up. But you can rearrange the parliamentary pieces. Anyway, enough said about that. I thought that was a good experiment, and it didn't unduly balance the game. Certainly not, because although the game was more interesting, the parliamentary forces and their cause under General Preston, that is to say me, was of course resoundingly crushed again. Okay, well, at least we got to play 27 turns, so there was an improvement. But how did we end up on the points? Well, at the end of the day, let's see. Get my notes out here, and we can just go through and take a look at the board. So Parliament ended up getting points for 1, 2, 3, 4 things. Yep. They got these 5 points down here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then they got 1 point for the position of the Puritan cause. And they got 2 points for the position of the parliamentary cause. So they got a total of 8 points, 8 victory points, 8 blue triangles as they are. That's a very good system. I do like that, because often in board games, the victory points can be very convoluted, and sometimes you read the victory conditions, and if they're not sort of symmetrical, where it's just sort of like I might be something simple like The one side has to get 10 points, and if they don't, they lose, and the other side wins. Something like that. But sometimes, I mean, the victory point calculation is an algorithm all in itself, and that is exposed the complexity and the challenge of that, as it were. Sometimes is exposed in games where it's like you've got a player who actually doesn't know he's losing or doesn't know he can't win because the victory points are so complex. The victory conditions are so complex. Well, anyway, in this, basically, if there's a blue triangle, then that's good. And if it's a red triangle, it's bad. So Parliament got 8 blue triangles. And let's see, the King, His Majesty, King Charles, what did he get? Well, he got loads. Let's see. So he had fortress-wise, let's see, he had Dublin, Edinburgh, Hull, Oxford. Oxford did change hands. It was taken by Parliament, but then the Crown took it back. Oxford, Bristol. Now, there are actually no points in London. It's not treated that way. It's like, well, if you've got London, you're okay. If you lose it, you've lost the war. So there we go. And then other victory points that the King had. Well, he's got one here for an uprising that hasn't been put down. Beyond that, let's see. It's the political situation. Yeah, so we've got 2 there for Ireland. I'm just checking my notes here. Yeah. We've got 3 there for the monarchy and fully 4 for Catholicism. Right. So there we go. And that's something to remind yourself, of course, when you're playing this, is obviously some things, feel vague. It's like, well, how determined should I be to fight back against the rise of Catholicism or the prominence of Catholicism in political thought, as opposed to a wargamer is usually sort of, let's see, the 7th Panzer is moving in on my city, so I think I'd better have a go at 7th Panzer in what I would call a battle. Yeah, so it's in terms of, Catholicism's on the rise. Well, to what extent do I need to worry about that? Well, here's what you do. You look at the triangles. Of course, I mean, we all know that, but it's worth sort of thinking, no, stop, think, look at the triangles. Because not only, of course, does it change what happens in the game, but it's also, those are the victory points right there printed on the map. Look, read it and weep. Okay, so you can see, for example, Ireland itself is obviously less important, as we can see, because even if it's at its worst state, it's worth 2 victory points. Okay, Scotland can come down to here, but even if it got down to the F zone, it's worth 1 victory point. Okay, so there you go. Let's see. Beyond that, so it was interesting. But of course, it's one of those things like it's all rather. What's the word? Yes, contemporary relevance, that sort of thing. Because of course, I've just played previous to this one. I played my first game of Cruel Necessity, and previous to that, I played my first game of D-Day at Peleliu, a far more complicated game, which took very, very, very much longer, and is much more like a traditional hex and counter game. Well, it is hex and counter, but the rules, of course, are totally different because it's solitaire by design. But the thing that it has in common with this is that lots of people have written about both games that it's very difficult to win in them. Pretty well everybody agrees, as far as I could see, that D-Day at Peleliu is definitely, yes, but it's worth it for the experience. It's worth it for the struggle. And, it can be won, sort of, maybe, perhaps, if you're lucky and if you're brilliant and lucky or something like that. But as far as this one goes, the difference with this, of course, is that it is refreshing because lately I have been playing extremely, well, to me, extremely complex games. And believe me, I mean, I'm no pussycat here. I mean, I've played, um, well, let's see, what have we got? Advanced Squad Leader. I mean, I think that just stands by itself. I've played many scenarios of Advanced Squad Leader, so I know my way around complex rules. But it is nice with this game to be able to play a much simpler game and have lots and lots of turns. Sit down for an evening and be able to work my way through. Well, this is what it was. This was 27 cards, so it was basically, think of it as 27 turns. And the total play time I had, again, I'm new to this. It's only my second game, so what would we say? Hang on a second. What would say the total play time was? Let's pause and have a think. I would say probably something like about 3 hours, and I think the first game was something like about 2 hours. Well, off the top of my head, um, it's I might be a little bit foggy on both of those things because I'm actually right now in the just the very end recovery stages of COVID, which I finally got here in October of 2023. So it took a long time to finally find me out, but it found me out, and then the following day it found my wife out as well. So we've both had it for a week, basically. But getting better, and here I am chatting away, so not too much sign of it in my voice. But there we go. Let's see, where are we? Just 1 second. Yeah, sorry about that. That's right. So yes, it was refreshingly different because it was a simple game that is simple enough to pick up, and it is nice to be playing a game where you don't have to keep looking at the rules all the time because of the complexity. And again, it makes a huge difference when the rules are available as a PDF that can be text searched. Can it overemphasize the importance that it is a PDF that can be text searched, as opposed to a PDF which has got graphics files representing the pages, which cannot be text searched. Because if that's the case, then you can have it on your phone, and when something comes up in the rules, never mind having a table of contents or an index or anything like that, you can use the search feature of the PDF to find every single occurrence of the word you're looking for, and as long as you choose, obviously, suitable targets, not words like the or a, but rather words like, as in, for example, cruel necessity, nice sort of standout words like deviltry, which is apparently a corruption of devilry. I mean, it is indeed, a 17th century word, but it is itself a corruption. But according to what I just saw on the web, anyway. Okay, so it was enjoyable, but there is the fact that at the end of the day, Parliament had 8 points, the King had 15, so we've got -7 points. And as far as the scoring in the book goes, there doesn't even seem to be a word for that. It's just sort of undescribably dreadful. And, I'm a wargamer of some 50-odd years of experience. You feel like you're kind of being crushed quite a bit. Of course, the dice are a factor. And as I said, in this game, I did change the battle rules. So that means I did win some battles, and that did have some effects. Of course, there's another factor there, of course, and that is the fact of if you do win a battle, the effects they're handy, but they're not huge. So maybe it'd be nice if the effects of winning a battle were a bit more dramatic. The other thing, of course, that I said in the first movie I made was a simple mechanic would be to experiment with, at least, would be each turn at least at the beginning of the war, with the cities, or rather the fortresses the way they are, fortified cities, you're going to get 5 zeal points um, each turn until things start changing. And my suggestion was, well, how about if we say, instead of London being worth 3 zeal points, how if we say London is worth 4 zeal points? So then in each turn you get 6 points instead. Just knock it up a little bit to, give, give Parliament, some kind of a break over here. What do you say? You know? Right. So that's it. I'm not sure. I am going to pack it up now. I've had 2 games, and I think it's time to move on to the next one. I've been breezing through lots of different board games and odd miniatures games here and there over the last several months. Actually, well, no, just board games over the last several months. But at least they're getting played and they're getting experimented with, and I mean, as usual, I say here's to it.